Good evening, everyone. On behalf of PCET, Pimpri Chinchwad College of Engineering, Pune, I, Swati Jagtap, welcome our guest of honor and today's speaker, Dr. Mrinal Prathwardhan, HOD ENTC, Dr. M.T. Kolte, HOD MCA, Professor Anjana Ma'am, all Dean Academics, Dr. N.B. Chopde, all HODs, faculty members, and all the participants for 6 days online training program on effective education content development. As it is rightly said by Jenny Adin, technology can become the wing that will allow the educational world to fly farther and faster than even before. But if we allow it, so this pandemic situation of COVID-19 has opened a new wings in the education system by shifting the teaching learning process to online platform and giving a new challenge to the faculties to make acquiring knowledge more fun and engaging the students through interactive online delivery. So, to cope up with this, we have planned the online training program with the main objective of providing the hands-on video creation and editing tool such as OBS, Camtasia, OpenShot Editor, and many more, so that the faculties will understand and learn the features of online teaching tools that will help them to create the interactive e-learning material. The learning outcome of this training program is to provide the student-centered pedagogical aspect of online teaching with engaging podcast and creation of the professional education video presentation. The training program is planned for six days from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The first day, the session will be taken by Dr. Mrinal Patwardhan ma'am on moving from F2F to online teaching, deriving from the classroom teaching experience. Day 2, the session will be on educational video creation, method and requirements by Dr. Yogendra Pal. Day 3 will be covering a screen recording using open source software OBS Studio by Mr. Manish Narkhade. Day 4 will be introducing the e-learning and screen post creation using Camtasia software by Dr. K.S. Kinge. Day 5 will be dealing with open source video editing technique and production tool by Dr. K.S. Kinge. Day 6, we will cover the conduction of live video webinar using YouTube Studio by Mr. Manish Narkhade. So hope you all will enjoy this new step of learning through practical aspect. Now I request our HOD ENTC, respected Dr. M.T. Kolte sir, to address the participant about the training program. Sir, over to you. Kolte sir, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Respected Dr. Parishwar sir, our beloved principal, Dr. Patwardhan madam, and all participants. So I'm delighted here for this 6-day workshop where we are changing our technology. So that is the classroom teaching towards the e-learning, or we can say the online teaching. But within that online teaching, so the students are expecting the videos so that videos can be seen by the students at any moments. So along with the content, the presentation has its own importance. And by considering that presentation, so here we are having the 6-day workshop where along with the content, how one should present the content as well as the videos. So for that one, we are having this 6-day workshop. So I think you will enjoy this workshop, and then we are having the question and answer for this one. So again, welcome. So we got that almost 77 participants from all the corner of this nation, India. So we have restricted ourselves up to the 75 participants, but the request is there from the participant. That's why we added two. So that so total there are the 77. So we got the entries from the means not only the Maharashtra but 20 plus entries from the other states. So I welcome each and every participant, and you will definitely you will enjoy this workshop for the next 6 days. So thank you very much. Over to Swati ma'am.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening the participant about the training program. Now I request our Dean Academics, Dr. N.B. Chopre, to address the gathering. Sir, please. Chopre, sir, over to you.
Good evening, all. Indeed, this is a great platform and gathering. I welcome all the members who have registered for this workshop, and they are really the concern about the stakeholders. So, our beloved principal, Dr. G.V. Parishwad, sir, our guest of honor, Dr. Mrunal Patwardhan, Dr. Pal, and our own faculty who will be delivering the sessions in this workshop. HODs, Dr. Kolte and Dr. Anjana madam, and obviously the beloved participants. To satisfy the student or to satisfy the stakeholder, this is the prime responsibility of all the teaching cadre. And the members who have joined this workshop have that zeal. So this pandemic situation have given us many problems, many challenges, and opportunities as well. Being a teacher, so our prime job is to satisfy our students through the teaching learning process. And in the online mode, content delivery, whether it is theory session or practical session, it is very important to ensure that our students are really satisfied. And this is the thought process Dr. Kolte and Dr. Kinge discuss, and then immediately the name of Dr. Patwardhan ma'am came to us, and this workshop have taken the shape. Of course, the guidance of our beloved principal is always there. So, hope that Dr. Swati ma'am have already shared the schedule. So, daily 2 hours, and the takeaway of this workshop is that all the 77 participants will be preparing their contents, qualitative contents to deliver the students, and they will also motivate the other faculty colleagues so that their quality of the content delivery will also improve. So all the best to all the participants. Thank you. Over to Swati ma'am.
Thank you, sir, for addressing the participant. Now I request our beloved principal, sir, respected Dr. G.V. Parishwad, sir, to address the participant and give the overview of the college and the training program. Over to you, sir.
Good evening to all. Dr. Mrunal Patwardhan, Dr. Yogendra Pal, our faculty members, Dr. Kishore Kinge, Manish Narkhede, all our faculty members, organizing committee, all participants. Welcome from the Pimpri Chinchwad College of Engineering, Pune. Our college is one of the leading institute which has maintained our rank in top 200 NIRF ranking for last 4 years. And this is because of our faculty members, their hard work, and always ready for change, always ready for the adopting new technology, and always wanting to update themselves. And because of this, it is possible now for us to maintain our quality. Recently, we have got the autonomy also, because of which our work has become more changing, more flexible, and we will be able to cope with all the necessary requirement for effective teaching. This particular workshop, Effective Educational Content Development, actually, initially when this corona pandemic started in China, all of us felt that it may be restricted to China only. But after 15th March, suddenly when it hit our country, all of us were suddenly caught on the wrong foot. When we say effective teaching, or good teaching. It is actually connection of a faculty with the students. It is heart to heart connection, and whatever we want to pass to the student, whether it reaches effectively to the students, is called a good teaching. But when we were suddenly wanted to shift from the physical teaching to the online teaching, many of us were not knowing how to use this software, what changes are required. Initially, in March and April, the people adopted the Zoom software or Google Meet, etc. And they found that these softwares were basically developed for conducting the meetings in industry. These softwares were not that effective while teaching in the classroom for the students. And when this was realized, and because of the lockdown period, there was some period when there was no teaching at all. But when after the lockdown, after 1st June, when our college restarted, we all thought that we should make this teaching more effective, and therefore we formulated a committee to study what are the existing softwares that are available for such type of online teaching. And this committee, after study of all available softwares that are available, they came with an idea that we can go for a flip-flop type of teaching, wherein we thought that we will purchase a software Bodhitree, which was developed by IIT Bombay, and we started with Bodhitree and upgrade software. Actually, these softwares, and because of this, we came in contact with IIT Bombay for this online teaching mode. And I hope because of this period, we carried out many experiments in our teaching methods, and many faculty members, they mastered this particular technique. Particularly Dr. Kinge, he did many videos during this period, and we realized that it is very necessary to explain and teach these new methods to all faculty members so that our teaching can become more effective. And that is how this particular workshop was designed and developed by Kinge sir. And for this also, we took the help of Dr. Mrinal Patwardhan, Dr. Yogendra Pal, and because of them, we feel that our teaching method will further improve. Our faculty members will learn lot of many new things. How to teach practicals is again one of the major worry what we are facing right now. Many videos are created for explaining the practicals to the students, but I think this workshop will help to further improve and further update ourselves in teaching and learning method, and particularly how to make this teaching more effective, more interactive, so that student will be more happy and satisfied through our teaching. So student-centric pedagogical aspects of online teaching is the main theme of this particular workshop. I appreciate the efforts taken by entire organizing team to organize this particular workshop, and I hope it will benefit all the faculty members all over the country. And I hope that because of this workshop, everybody, even the student community, will be very much benefited. I wish best of luck for all the organizers for organizing this particular workshop effectively, and at the same time I wish best of luck to all the participants who have given overwhelming response. Already more than 75 participants have joined this particular workshop, and I hope this will help not only all the faculty members but the entire student community. I wish best of luck from Pimpri Chinchwad College of Engineering. And I hope whenever you visit Pune, please visit our institute, and we'll be very happy to interact with you and get associated with you. All the best. Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for addressing the participant. And surely we have designed this particular online training program to give a hands-on on video creation and editing. And if this will be definitely beneficial for all the participants to enhance the e-learning. So thank you. Moving ahead, I request all the participants to please switch off their video. Archana ma'am and Ujjwala ma'am, please can you switch off the video? Archana madam and Ujjwala ma'am, can you please switch off the video? Okay. It is a great pleasure for me to introduce our today's speaker, Dr. Mrunal Patwardhan. Ma'am has a doctorate from IIT Bombay in Educational Technology. Currently, she is associated with Parimal and Pramod Chaudhary Center for Learning and Teaching at IIT Bombay. She has 22 plus more year of teaching experience as a faculty in engineering college and 3 years of telecom industry experience. Apart from her teaching experience of core telecom courses, ma'am is passionate about how technology enhanced learning can be used in engineering education to facilitate teaching learning process. As a part of her research work, she developed interactive learning environment for a course on signals and system, which serve as a valuable teaching resource for instructor. She has been a recipient of the award for excellence in thesis work for the year 2015 to 2017 from IIT Bombay. She was selected for Asia Pacific Society for Computers in Education Merit Scholarship Program Award in 2014. Ma'am has been a reviewer for reputed international conferences and journals on use of computers and technology in education. She has worked as a resource person for a number of faculty development activities and is keen on building teachers' community for promoting effective teaching learning practices. So we welcome you, ma'am, for this online session, and we request you, ma'am, to start with the session. Over to you, ma'am, Mrunal ma'am. Before starting with the session, I request Ujjwala ma'am, please can you switch off your video? Ujjwala ma'am, can you please switch off your video? Okay, thank you. Over to you, ma'am, Mrunal ma'am, please.
Yeah. Good evening, all of you. I take this opportunity to express my thanks to the principal and organizing committee of the Pimpri-Chinchwad College of Engineering. I really appreciate the efforts that you are putting in strengthening the teaching learning process, not just in your institute, but also you are extending this help to other faculty members. And I thank all the participants, and my special compliments to all the participants for committing themselves at this time, because I know it has been a long working day for most of you, but still you are here. That shows your passion for teaching and learning, and I will try my level best to make the best out of the next coming 2 hours. Over to the moderator. Is the sound audible?
Yes, ma'am. The sound is
okay. So I'm just sharing my screen now. I'll start with my session. So just let me know in case if there is any problem with the screen sharing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let's start. So today's topic here is moving from face-to-face to online teaching, deriving from the classroom teaching experience. See, I'm just going to spend half a minute in understanding more, or making you people understand more about the title of this session itself. See, when we talk about teaching, actually it is not teaching, but it is more about learning. We learn as a teacher, and our students are also learning when we are teaching. At the same time, we are also the other word that is catching my attention here is face to face, right? And the third word which I'm going to focus upon is online. So we are basically going to understand how people learn. Then we will see how what we have been doing in our face-to-face, that is in physical classrooms. And after that, we will move on to see how this can be translated, this can be transformed into our online teaching. So that is how is going to be the approach of today's presentation. I will switch on my video so that it becomes more personalized. Let's see. Okay. So as I've said, this is what is going to be the outline of the session. We will talk about something about learning. It's going to be a completely perhaps different topic, but I'm sure it's going to be very interesting to know some aspects about the learning itself. Then we will see what we have been doing in our face-to-face classes, right? And then we will move on to how to design a student-centered instructional strategies for online teaching. So just a brief overview about this today's session. See, I'm going to focus more on the pedagogical aspect because there are many sessions being planned which are going to talk about technology. And as very rightly said, when we have technology in our hand, it is more important to understand when and why to use the technology. So in today's session, we are going to give focus on that aspect of it. So the focus of this today's session is more on making lectures and classes student-centered. Be it a physical classroom where you are seeing your students in front of you, or it could be an online class. Okay, and it covers fairly domain-independent strategies. Whatever we are going to talk about, that should be applicable to most of the courses that you teach. Some adaptation or some minor changes you might have to do while adapting it to your particular topic. As it has been already said by the organizers, please keep your mic muted, keep your video off. Please have a notebook or notepad with you because this is going to be an interactive session, and at some times I would request you people to write your comments or write your reviews or your answers in your books. The slides in this presentation, they follow color coding. So you will find that the presentation is made up of slides with different colors. Every color has certain significance, and I'll be explaining that. So don't get overwhelmed about it. And the most important point here is you are required to give your responses on some of the activities, follow the instructions, and be very participative for the next 2 hours. So when you see this blue color slide, this slide says that I am an activity slide. Okay, so this slide, use this slide to pause, reflect, and do the activity that is mentioned therein. If you see this icon, that will expect you to type your answers or responses in the chat box of Google Meet. Okay, so dynamically on real time, I would expect you to submit your answers or give your responses. And once again, it's a sincere request that responding is highly recommended and highly desirable. See, we want our students to be very interactive in our classes, right? So let us try to be interactive in today's session so that you will be able to derive the most out of it. When you see this green color slide, this will be a takeaway slide. So whatever is the summary or gist of whatever discussion is happening, that I have put on this slide. So this will work as a ready reference for you when you have to prepare for your online classes. So let's start with the first part of this talk or this session, which is about some learning about learning. It's very, very interesting. And, you know, being into this profession for so many years, perhaps there are some things which are actually not known to us. And when you come to know, that becomes that eureka or aha moment. Oh, it works like this. This is something has been my personal experience, and I thought I must share this with you also. So this teaching learning process, I mean, it's not possible for us to isolate these two words, teaching and learning. These two words go hand in hand. So it's a process. And now, since last more than 2 decades, I would say, it has become a very well-informed process by confluence of many streams. So in true sense, it has become an interdisciplinary field. So we have now inputs from learning sciences, educational research. There is a educational technology that is helping us. Not just that, we have cognitive psychology, cognitive science, neuroscience, and so many things. And because of which this field is becoming more and more richer, and it is helping teacher community to come up with more evolving pedagogies and more evolving methods of making students learn better. That's the beauty of this interdisciplinary nature of this field. So with this understanding, let us try to peep into this learning process. Let me take straight away an example. Now here the participants might be from different streams. So I will be taking a topic which is fairly easy to understand and appreciate for all of you. Just a simple topic of linear equation. So we come across linear equations many times and in many different forms. It could be 2 variable linear equation, 1 variable linear equation, standard form of linear equation, there is slope intercept form, and so on. Okay. What is interesting to know here is, see each circle here. So basically whatever we talk about, for example, coefficients, this form of the equation, y is equal to mx plus c, intercept, x-axis, slope, and so on. All these are individual concepts. They are not just merely words, but they are organized and intricate knowledge structures. So this is something first we need to understand. What I mean by this, it's very easy. When you say y is equal to mx plus b or mx plus h, this is a very standard equation. We all know this. But immediately what clicks to us is m stands for slope, maybe b stands for intercept on y-axis, there is x coordinate, there is y coordinate. So all these are individual concepts, but they are not isolated concepts. They are forming a kind of network, and that network is what we called as knowledge structure. And this structure is very dense and interconnected. And more denser and more interconnected this structure becomes, that is the sign that we are moving from novice to expert stage. At this moment of time, you might be surprising, why am I talking this in the session which is on online learning? But I request you to have some patience, and very soon you will understand why it was important for us to know about these concepts. So as you could see here, all these small circles here, dots, they represent individual concepts, and all these concepts are interlinked. That is what we call as associated knowledge elements. Let me give you a quick example. For example, let's say differential equations. Now, we must have learned differential equations in mathematics. Okay, but we also use them maybe in mechanical engineering, in heat transfer, in electromagnetic wave theory, in signals and system, and in n number of different courses. So when you suppose you're talking about differential equations in electromagnetic wave theory, automatically that typical your understanding or knowledge gets stimulated, which you have learned in some different subject. And that is what we mean by it's a associative knowledge. There are patterns of association. So pattern of association of knowledge elements is what we call as knowledge structures. Okay, fair enough. But what does this tell us as far as teaching learning is concerned? It is reasonably easy to learn something that matches or extend an existing schema. This is what we mean by schema. So as you could see, the individual dots here, that is what we called as schema, right? And what we are saying here is it is reasonably easy to learn something that matches or extends an existing schema. So it's very easy if you try to learn something new with the help of what is something is already known to us, as simple as that. So that's the reason we as a faculty, we emphasize on prior knowledge, what must be known or what is the context of what we are talking about. At the same time, it's a bit harder to learn something that you almost don't know. Okay, so therefore, as a teacher, it is easy for us to make students learn something when we try to present that with the help of something that students already know, or the context has been made very clear to them. So it is better that new information should always be presented in the context that is familiar to the learner or reader, and the context should be established first. Okay, so let us keep this point in mind, and we will, revisit this learning or this aspect of it as we move forward. Another very interesting thing that we are going to see, and it's very absolutely interesting exercise. So what am I going to do is, on the next slide, there is a string of numbers. So what I will show you that slide for almost 5 to 6 seconds. What I want you to do is this: look at it, read it aloud to yourself, look away for 10 seconds, and then try to recollect, try to retrieve the string of numbers that you have seen on this slide, and just start writing it down in the notepad or notebook, whatever you have in front of you. And then please share your experience in the Google Meet chat box. When I say experience, that means, are you able to, instead of exactly reproducing the string what you're going to see, I would expect to share your experiences in terms of, I mean, are you able to retrieve the entire all the digits which were there in the string, or which part of the string you were able to recollect? Okay, so is this instruction clear? Now on the next slide, you will see the string. Have a look at it. It will be there only for brief time, maybe about maximum 6 to 7 seconds. Then I will you try to retrieve that string, and then let us see what are your experiences. Please share your experiences using this Google Meet chat box. So here you go. Okay, so I had shown the string for brief time duration. Now I want you to retrieve the string, okay? And whatever are your experiences, how successful you have been in retrieving this string of numbers, please post your experiences into the chat box. I will be able to move forward only after seeing your responses in the chat box, okay? There are 75 participants, so at least I would wait till around 25 to 30 minimum people give their responses. Good going. Keep on submitting your responses. Yeah, you all are on right track. Please, whatever is your experience, there is nothing good, correct or incorrect. Please feel absolutely free while you submit your responses. Okay, so what I'm observing here, some of them have been really successful in retrieving all 12 numbers. I don't know whether they are correct or not, but some of them are saying first 5 to 6, first few, 3, 4, first 3, 4 numbers, first 5, 6. Okay, I could read only 6 numbers and recollect rightly, not able to read whole string. Okay. Next 5, 6 digits. Okay, so most of the people, what I understand from here, are able to get up to first maybe 5, first 5 or 6. Okay, there are some people who are really able to retrieve all 12. That's good thing. Okay, now we have something more to understand from this. Okay, so now I'll move ahead. Okay, so now I have same task again for you. Now what you are going to do is, you are going to do the same task for the string on the following slide, and again you will post your experiences in the chat box. Okay, so now we are moving ahead, right? Those who have already submitted responses, thanks for that. Now remaining people need not submit. Now we are going to the next phase of this task. So we will do the same task for the string, which will be shown on the next slide, and now post your experiences. Okay, here you go. Okay, now I want you to post your experiences as compared to how was your experience for the first time. So was there any difference? Whatever you have in your experiences, please put your answers now in the chat box. Okay, so somebody is saying it is easy than the first one. So more than numbers, I want you to have the comparison between these two experiences. Better, simple, it's easy, easier. Spacing was helpful. Okay, good. It's easy to see. I memorize easily. Simple. It's ATM card strategy is so easy to recall. Oh, that's great. It's easier to retrieve. Very good. Okay. So little bit easy, better than earlier one. Right. Okay. Let's continue with this exercise. Now try to memorize this string quickly and then I'll move on again. Okay. So now can I have your experiences? It's simplest. People have written it down. Okay. It seems yours. Okay. Able to retrieve all. Okay, 1947, 1857, 2020. Very good, easiest. Okay, what is more interesting? Okay, so you all are getting, in fact, you all are, coming to the point that I'm trying to make. Okay, now let's come back. Okay, now people can stop giving their responses because we have to understand exactly why this is happening. So, and this is a very, very important, input for us as teachers. See what happened initially. So here was this first string. Then the next string was exactly the same, only, I introduced some space in between, or I segmented this string. Or to be more precise, I created chunks out of this string. Chunks are the smaller sections, little parts. Okay. Remember this point number 1, or the first change that I made. In the second string was again in the form of chunks. But look at this, 1947. It's very easy for us to associate this number with something. 1857, again we know what is the significance of 1857. So immediately you could associate this with the year 1857. 2020, it's a number 2020, but you could immediately associate that with the current calendar year. Okay, and this is what is very important. So please remember, chunking helps students in learning, right? Whether learner at any age, it could be your students or you as learner. So chunking helps students in learning. It's easier to remember or acquire new knowledge when it is presented in chunks and when related with what is already known. So this is what precisely we did here. In the first change, what we did there, we presented the content in the form of chunks, and in the second case the numbers were changed, but the numbers were something that perhaps the context was known to you, it was already known to you, so it was very easy for you to connect this new piece of information with what was already known to you, right? So therefore these are very important aspects of learning, and believe me, they make tremendous difference in improving the learning outcome. We will see how to do that, how to operationalize that or implement that in our day-to-day teaching. Okay, so had this been a face-to-face feedback FDP session, I would pause here and I will say, is this making sense? I'll look around in the class and I will take the feedback. This is a webinar, so let me ask the same questions to you. Is this talk making sense so far? Please type yes or no in the chat window. This is a very instant feedback to me, immediately to understand that are you all on the same page, so that gives me immediate feedback. Should I be moving ahead, or is there anything extra that I need to do other than what I had planned? So I could see most of them are yes, so let me move ahead. Okay, now let us come to the third aspect, peeping into the learning process. So what do we want our students to learn? Let it be first year students, second year, third year, science students, engineering student, architect students, any student. Normally we could say that whatever we want our students to learn, it is in the form of content, in terms of topics, concepts, process, procedures, algorithms, right? How does all these things can be integrated together to understand the whole concepts? And the second aspect of what we want our students to learn are the thinking skills and abilities, problem solving, application, design experiment, designing a circuit, designing an algorithm, experimentation, carrying out experiments, troubleshooting, hypothesis testing, if it is a software program, how to debug that program, representation, communication, n number of thinking skills and abilities we want our students to learn. Okay. So now as a faculty, it's a question for us. How do we help our students learn all this? So here is a blue slide which indicates a reflection spot. Think of any activity that you feel you excel at doing. It could be absolutely anything. It could be cooking, singing, doing yoga, running, cycling, writing, troubleshooting of a circuit, programming. It could be absolutely anything. You don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me. Hold on. You don't have to tell me. Okay, just write down your answer into your books. Okay, let it be anything that you think that you are doing something. You are doing something, right? And now think about why you are so good at this activity and write down top 3 reasons why you think that you are master in this activity. Don't share this on this chat window. Just, write it in your books. Okay. So pick up any one activity you think that you are good at. Okay. And then just try to write down maybe 1 or 2, maximum 3 reasons why you think that you are good in this activity. Let me give you 30 seconds to do this exercise. Okay, so I think by this time you must have picked up one activity, and you are also now by this time writing down the reasons why you think that you are good in this activity. Let's move ahead. So now I'm going to guess the reason why you are good at whatever activity that you have picked up. So I think the one of your top 3 reasons will be practice by doing it more often and experience. This is no rocket science. We all know that the only way of becoming expert or becoming more and more perfect in doing anything is keep on doing it. Do it, practice it more often by take experience on your own, right? So this is no secret, or this is absolutely straightforward, very intuitive answer, right? If it is so, then how do we help our students learn all that what we want them to learn? So just understand, do you feel that you could have gained this mastery only by listening to lectures on this topic? You want to become an expert in yoga. Can you do that without practicing yoga? You want to be good in cycling. Can you do that without actual cycling? Just listening to somebody or reading something about it or just collecting information is not going to help you. You must do it, right? So therefore, remember one thing: what helps us to move from being a novice or becoming an expert is learning by doing. So as a faculty, what is our responsibility? We must give this experience to our students. So let us create opportunities for facilitating this experience wherever possible. So remember, learning by doing. So what have been the takeaways for us as far as teaching and learning is concerned? See, people do not learn when they receive, people learn what they retrieve. We all are under this illusion that when I'm teaching in the class, my students are learning. But you all know that actually we learn when we try to retrieve it, and not just, so when it is going to your brain as an input, that's not the time when learning is taking place. Learning is taking place when you are trying to retrieve it from with your own experiences. So people learn what they retrieve. So we need to give these opportunities for students to retrieve what they have been learning. So as learners, we develop mastery through practice, that is by doing activities. And as teachers, we must ensure that we provide our students with practice, sufficient and timely opportunities, peer learning, and feedback. Okay, so these were 3 important, you could say, aspects of learning that I wanted to share with you. And now we come to this task, that how does this help in designing student-centered instructional strategies in face-to-face classrooms? See, the reason I'm starting with face-to-face classroom, because that is what we all have been doing, so far. Irrespective of how many years of teaching experience you have, at least I could say that the more number of teaching experiences of face-to-face, teaching as compared to online teaching. So why not to, learn something new from what is something known to us. So let us use the same principle what we had just talked about. So this is going to be a brief session, and wherein I'm just trying to cover or touch upon the important aspects what a teacher must know when we are discussing anything about teaching and learning, irrespective of whether you are doing it in your physical classrooms or you are doing that in your virtual classroom. So here is one different perspective to have a look at it. Assume that you are a group of civil engineers. It's an analogy that I am taking, and you have been asked to build a bridge. Okay, you are a group of civil engineers. You have been asked to build a bridge. So, person A from the group says, "Let us build the bridge from wood." Person B says, "Let us build the bridge from steel," and person C says, "Let us build the bridge from cement." Okay. Now, I could imagine what must have been your expressions, reading these three statements. Is this discussion making any sense? I think you all are with me that it's not making any sense. How can you design a bridge? How can you build a bridge without knowing what for it is going to be used? What is expected out of it? So it is like asking whether a bridge should be built from wood, steel, cement, etc. is without even knowing what the bridge is going to be used for after it is made. Isn't it? This is very straightforward and very easy for us to accept. That you can't build a bridge, you can't decide with what you will be building the bridge without knowing what for it is going to be used. What is the intention? What is the purpose of that bridge? What is the objective of that bridge? Okay? If this part is very straightforward, then I'm sure the next slide will also make a lot of sense to you. Let me just translate this scenario from building a bridge to teaching a topic. Suppose you are a group of teachers and you have been asked to teach a topic. So A says, "Let me teach with using chalk and board." B says, "Let me teach using PowerPoint presentation." C says, no, let me teach by asking questions and having a discussion among students." So if you could, pause for a moment here, and if you could reflect on this, you will understand that even this discussion is also not making any sense with the same logic. Why? It's like asking whether a topic should be taught using chalk, board, PowerPoint, question, discussion, or any other technology tool without even knowing what students should be able to do after learning the topic. So this brings us to this question: how to design an effective teaching learning process? Rather, I would like to put this question: when do we start our teaching? Our teaching starts by answering the question, what is that students will be able to do after they learn a particular subject, course, or topic? So with what I'm going to teach comes at a later on stage, but what is more important is that having learned that topic, what is expected from my students, that has to be very clear to you. And based on that, you can always design your instructional strategy. So we should understand from where to start, right? So remember, it starts much before we enter into our classrooms for teaching. This brings us to this aspect of what we call as the triangle of effective learning. Again, irrespective of the year that you are teaching, whether it's a first year, second year, undergraduate program, postgraduate program, even if it is a school education, remember always your teaching learning process has three important aspects. That is what we call as triangle of effective learning. And it starts from learning objective. The way you cannot build a bridge without knowing what for it is to be used or what is the expectation out of it. Similarly, teaching learning process cannot start without knowing what students should be able to do after they have learned a particular topic, course, program, whatever. And that's the reason we have this, course outcomes, program outcomes, learning objectives. All these phrases, they are not just, phrases, or they are not fancy words, but they are that's the starting point of our teaching learning process. Second important aspect of this triangle of effective learning, or you could say that, this triangle has three vertices. First one is learning objective. Second one could be assessment. I know that my students should be able to do XYZ, but how do I know that they are able to do this XYZ? There comes the assessment into picture. So how to measure what students have achieved, okay? And there comes the third part of it, that is actually what we do to make students learn. That is what we call as instructional activities. So how to make students achieve the outcome, or rather, what does a teacher should do to make students learn? So whenever you talk about face-to-face classes, online classes, let it be a single lecture, let it be an entire course for a semester, it could be lab course, whatever it may be. Even if it is a single lab experiment, remember these three aspects are very important. That what for this is happening, or what is that students will be able to do at the end of this session, right? Then how am I going to assess that they have achieve the required competency or skill, and how do I make them learn all these things? So always remember this triangle of effective learning. So whenever you go for curriculum design, this is how the curriculum or course design takes place actually. Since you have mentioned that yours is an autonomous institute, so this is very important when you are investing into designing your own programs, own courses. So this is a typical approach which is used in educational theories, which is known as backward design. So we start from learning goals. What are the learning goals? How are we going to assess whether the goals have been met or not? And then actually what are the instructional strategies? So this is the way of, actually coming to what we do in the classes. So just one slide, because otherwise it will take a lot of our time in understanding this. These learning objectives are goal statements which are student centered, and they specify the measurable performance outcome of students. I think most of the institutes are going through this process of accreditation, and therefore this revised Bloom's taxonomy 6 levels of writing learning outcomes, and is something must be known to most of the faculty. So I'm not keeping this as a part of today's talk, but please remember that it has to be a student centered. So it's not about what I'm going to teach, it's about what is that my students will be able to do. So that is what you mean by student centric. It should be measurable. So we don't make use of the phrases like students should be able to know something, students should be able to understand something, because these are vague terms. We avoid them, okay? And it has to be some performance outcome. So there has to be some activity that students are doing. There is something doing which is taking place, and that is what you are measuring while when you are designing your learning objectives. So now in this part of this talk, I'm going to focus more on the instructional activities. I mentioned very briefly about learning objectives. I'm not touching assessment at all because that's a session on its own, right? But obviously I will be talking about instructional activities, because that's what is our aim for today's session, how to do them in physical classrooms and then in online classes. Okay, so let us see how do we plan instructional activities. Now here again, I'm just trying to articulate what you people have already been doing. So the claim is not that you are not doing this, but whatever you are doing, it just, uniformly we are just trying to share with everybody. So there is a very beautiful way of designing your class, maybe 60-minute lecture or 2 hours lecture or one and a half hours lecture, whatever it is, with the help of what we call as bookend lecture template. You know the word bookend, So this graphically, visually, this looks like a bookend. Bookend is the support that we put at the end of the book stack. You must have seen that in the library. So it looks like that. And therefore, this is called as bookend lecture template. So you could imagine here that this is it's like your time axis. So let's assume this is your 1 hour class, right? So what all things you will do in your 1 hour class, that is what is depicted here in this bookend lecture template. It has different components. So as you could see, the first component, what we call as advanced organizer, Then there are actual instructions which take place, and there is a 5 to 6 minutes of summary. So advanced organizer, lecture for some time, there is cognitive processing activity, again lecture, and so on. So let us try to understand in very simple way, what is this all about? So looking at this diagram, at least the very first takeaway for all of us is that you should not be talking for entire 60 minutes. Okay, that is the way to make your classes student centric. So this is an illusion that we all have, that more I talk in my classes, more my students are going to learn. That doesn't happen. We all know this actually. Okay, so therefore it's very important that there are some activities given within the classes. So you lecture for some time, give some activity, again you continue your session, give activity. Now remember, this part is not hard and fast. So it's not necessary you have to take a break after 10 to 12 minutes. That will depend on your topic or your course, what kind of strategies you're using. The bottom line is, please don't engage your students entirely in a monologue where you are only talking and students are very passively listening to you for entire time duration. That is not something expected when we talk about a good parameter of teaching learning process. Okay, so let's see how to arrange your lectures based on this. So the first part is advanced organizer. That is the initial 5 to 6 minutes of your session. See, we all do this. It's not that we don't do this, but we are just trying to put that in a very easily understandable manner. So what is the objective? Pull students in, engage students immediately. So what can you do for this first 5-10 minutes? It could be prior knowledge check. You want to start with a new topic. You want to check whether students have understood it correctly or not. Or you want to just, last lecture retrieval, connect it to what you have discussed in the last lecture, so that you could connect that to your next lecture or today's lecture. You might have given some assignment, right? And you want to check on that. You want to discuss the responses or the feedback what you got. Or it could be a very small and simple quiz that you want to give, low stake quiz. So it will not have any bearing on the final grades of your students, but you might give some kind of a simple quiz. So basically your objective is to engage students immediately. See, remember, especially when you have back-to-back lectures, you have to give some time for students to come out of one subject or one course and get engaged into another one. So this first from 3, 4, 5 minutes, whatever is appropriate as far as your teaching style and your topic is concerned, that is what you should be doing. So that is the first part. Why we should do this? Remember, this we have learned in the learning aspect of it, because new knowledge can be connected to the prior knowledge or what is already known. So this is a good way of connecting or establishing this connect. What to do during the lecture? Okay, this is something is very important. So now here I have this question for you. This is a blue slide, activity slide. So here is a question. Let me read this question. You can also read the question along with me. Which of the following options, if I use during my lecture, will make my students learn actively? A, I often pause to ask students if they understood the material. B, I allow students to interrupt whenever they have doubts or resolve their doubts before proceeding further. I never hesitate to answer their questions. C, I give them activity to do in class, provide feedback before proceeding further. And fourth one is I pause and show them demos, videos, or simulations. Okay, so now you have to select one of these options, B and C, C only, C and D, and all of the above. Hold on. How are you going to do this? Don't give answers on the chat box. I said hold on. Visit this site, www. You must, maybe on your laptop or mobile, whichever gadget you are using, visit this site, www.menti.com. It will ask you for a code. Give this code. It will take you to this question, and there you submit your answer. So the question is here in front of you on the screen. Please go to www.menti.com. It will ask for a code. Give this code number 7924166, okay, and submit your answer. It's like Kaun Banega Karodpati polling. You just have to give whatever is the correct answer and submit your answers. Here on real time, I'll be saying how many people are responding, and immediately I'll be able to see what is the opinion of the entire participant, all the participants here. So start polling. Yeah, I'm able to. Yeah, I'm able to see the responses. There are 74 participants right now. Okay. So far, only 16 people have given their answers. Please keep on submitting your responses. 19 people have given their answers. Please be participative. That's what we want our students also to do in our classes, right? So let us set an example that how participative and interactive we can be in our own classes. 29 people have submitted. I need at least 50 answers. Please vote. "31 answers submitted so far. I'll wait for another 30 seconds or so. Please keep on submitting your answers. More the merrier. 37. Let's do at least half a century. 40. 10 more to go. Yes. Have we reached to plateau? Only 40 people have submitted. 41. Okay. So what I will do is I will take a screenshot of the answers, or maybe I'll share this screen so that you understand how dynamically I'm getting these answers. Let me share this screen with you. I'm sharing the screen. So are you able to see the screen here? Somebody can give the answer in chat box. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so are you able to see so far? Around 44 people have submitted, and majority of them see that all of the above is the correct answer. Okay, let me come back to our presentation. Okay, so are you able to see the screen again now, the presentation screen? Okay, fine. So see, most of the people have given this answer as, all of the above. Now let us just try to understand what happens or what is the correct answer. So let us see one by one. See, the actual correct answer is C only. Let me tell you why. I often pause to ask students if they understood the material. See, we ask this question many times in our classes that have you understood the content, right? But you know that there are only self-motivated 10-20% students who will nod their heads, or perhaps sometimes even the entire class will nod their head and will say that they have understood. But actually whether they have understood or not, they themselves do not. That is the problem, because they haven't got any opportunity to assess whether they have understood what is being taught in the class. I allow students to interrupt whenever they have doubts. Now, you all know from your own experiences which are the students who ask questions. Again, those 5-10% students in the class who are self-motivated question students, they ask the questions, and remaining almost 70-80% of the students, they don't ask any questions. And that's the reason, if we want maximum and more number of students to be participative in the class, we have to give them activity to do in the class, provide feedback before proceeding further. See, the way I try to involve more and more participant in, by involving them into this activity. This is something that, actually tries to make your classes more interactive. And the fourth one, I pause and show them demos, videos, simulations. Yeah, they are just going to observe that very passively. They are not getting involved into doing something. And because of which, during the lecture, it is very important that we try to make these classes more active. How to do that? That we will see in a moment. So basically, what you should be doing when you're talking about your lecture. Very first principle, break up the lecture. Give students short breaks throughout the lecture to review their notes or ask questions. Okay, have some kind of activity. Now, there are many such strategies. I will not be touching them as because again that itself is a session. There are think, pair, share, clicker questions, peer instructions, jigsaw, problem-based learning. All this can be done. But the point is, you can start with the simplest one, and that is what you can continue during your lecture. The way, we are asking very simple questions. Later on in this presentation, I have, some slides, like actual examples to show you how this can be done. So we will spend more time on that. And why we should be doing this? Because we know that chunking and learning by doing helps you to learn better, right? So that is the reason we want to make use of these two principles or these two perspectives into our lectures. And at the end, try to summarize the session, allow students to mentally process. So whatever you have discussed, just, try to summarize that, try to tell them where does it fit into the big picture. So if in the entire unit or in the entire module of your syllabus, this is the small topic that we have done. This is how it is connected to other relevant topics. That is something we can plan. So basically what we are trying to say is we should involve students into active learning, where students go beyond listening, copying of notes, just doing something what has been told to them. And so majority of the students should be able to give their opinion. Now, I'm sure you must be wondering, this is all is okay as far as face-to-face classes are concerned. How do we do it in online classes? Hold on, we are going to discuss that aspect as well. Okay, so understand a very simple rule, irrespective of whether you teach in physical classrooms or in virtual classrooms. It is not about what teachers do, but it is all about what students do to learn. So are we planning our lectures like I will do this, I will show this, I will tell students this, right? Then I think it is still a teacher-centered approach, and we have to move to how to make it learner-centered by thinking in this direction. I will make students do this, students will do this, or what is that students will do in my class. So this is just a slight change, mindset change that we have to bring to make our classes more student-centered. Okay, so this is just a summary of what we talked about, how to plan our instructional activities. So later on, maybe I can share some of the slides with you all. Okay, so again, it's a time for me to take some feedback. Is this talk making sense so far? I know we haven't touched to online yet, but now remaining 1 hour, we will be talking exclusively on online learning. So is this talk making sense? Okay, so I could see people replying in yes. So that is an indication for me to proceed further and go ahead. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so this brings us to the core of today's session, that is how to design student-centered instructional strategies for online teaching. Now, we all have been doing this face-to-face teaching, and all of a sudden we were forced by the pandemic situation to move towards online teaching. But I would introduce one more phrase in between, which was emergency remote teaching. So frankly, in the month of April or March, when the lockdown started and we had to close our institutes, that time, whatever efforts we did to teach students, actually we will say that it was emergency remote teaching. Reason being, neither students nor teachers were ready for this. So we tried to do the best what we could, but it's a new game that we all are learning. And therefore, we have to hold our patience. We have to be very patient with really getting into this online teaching. I'm sure all faculty have put in tremendous efforts in, trying to give the maximum knowledge to students to whatever way it was possible. But now here is a time we will try to look at it in a more systematic way. Okay. So what happens, the reason why I'm mentioning or bringing in this phrase as emergency remote teaching, it might have happened that after conducting first 3-4 online lectures in whatever form, you must have got, this impression that no, this is not going to work. We are so used to face-to-face teaching. Our students are also so used to face-to-face teaching. How can they learn into this online mode? Okay, so we are in a hurry to come to this conclusion, right? So, and there is always a very temptation to compare which is better, online teaching is better or face-to-face teaching is better. So this slide I'm putting just to make you people realize or to make you understand that don't get into this comparison, because point number one is we don't have any other option. We are not going to have our students in our face-to-face classes at least for some time. We have to go ahead with the online teaching. And both these are different media, right? Every medium comes with its own pros and cons. So it's not going to be an apple to apple comparison. So let us try to do the best what we can do with this medium, that is online teaching. Okay. So therefore, even if you must have got discouraged with your first few experiences of online teaching, I just want to reassure you that actually it wasn't online teaching, but it was kind of SOS call, emergency remote content. That's the best that you could do at that time with whatever resources were available to you. It wasn't a planned online teaching. And therefore, now the remaining part of this session will help you plan your forthcoming online classes, building upon your face-to-face classroom teaching experiences. Okay. So the goal of this session now is to exploit the power of online medium and utilize it to promote effective student learning. Let's see how to do this. Now, you know that it could be synchronous or asynchronous mode of teaching. Now, whatever I'll be talking henceforth is completely about online teaching. It could be synchronous or asynchronous. What do you mean by synchronous? Where all your students are present in online environment simultaneously, you are also present. For example, what we are having right now, that is an example of synchronous mode of teaching or synchronous mode of instruction. If my session would have got recorded and if that would have made available to you, you could have watched it as and when time permits to you with any gadget anywhere. That is called as asynchronous mode of teaching. Now what happens, immediately when you come across two related phrases, our mind goes on comparing this. Which is better, synchronous or asynchronous? And the answer is both are equally important and powerful. And what is the most powerful way of doing it is a good combination of this. So even a single course or even a single topic can have a combination of both these modes. So first of all, it is perfectly okay to have some of your sessions, some of your lectures in synchronous mode and some of your lectures in asynchronous mode. In fact, if it is going to be only plain content delivery, you just want to deliver the material, record your lecture, make it available to students, they will, and give some deadline that by this time you must have watched this session, and in a synchronous, so that will be a asynchronous mode of teaching. Your students will watch that lecture as and when time permits, of course within the limit, okay, and then what will be more beneficial for your students, it will be the synchronous interaction. So maybe you might have posed certain questions or the doubt clearing, that is something can be done in a synchronous manner. So first of all, don't have very clear idea about this, that whether synchronous or asynchronous, both comes with their own merits, demerits. Okay, For example, in case of synchronous, what if some students do not have bandwidth available at that time, network is down, they will not be able to join you in a synchronous mode. So for them, that time asynchronous is more beneficial. But if you are going to have some kind of discussion, that time you would like all your students to be present at the same time. Okay, so make this choice what you want to do is and when you want to do it. But there is nothing like synchronous is good or asynchronous is good. It has to be a combination of both this. So now when we want to make transition to online, first of all, let us quickly see what happens in our face-to-face classes. So our F2F classes, what do? We conduct lectures, we give notes. Notes could be given in the form of, if you have learning management systems like Moodle or Blackboard, you give your notes on that. You give homework, you give assignments, okay, you give additional readings, right? And also, this is what all you do. But in addition to this, the students also discuss the things within themselves, among themselves, okay? They have their own unofficial doubt clearing sessions, and there is tremendous power into it. Peer learning is very, very important. In fact, a student may not be very comfortable in asking a doubt to you, but a student will be very comfortable with asking the doubt with his own or her own friend, right? So that is what we call as peer-to-peer learning. Now, what should happen as far as this is concerned in your online classes? As far as lectures and notes are concerned, make your lecture videos, record presentations, make your notes available to students using some media. I mean, it could be as simple as that WhatsApp also, depending on what your institute allows and what is accessible to your students. Give reflection questions, practice questions, right? Share presentations, learning material, additional reading, and create opportunities for students to have peer discussion or peer learning. If all these are appearing jargons to you, hold on for some time, and we are going to go very much into detail of all these things, that how do you make transition to online. So typical online instruction, anytime, anywhere, any device. That is the basic fundamental of online instruction. Make course material available in asynchronous access. So these are the 4 important things. Give immediate practice activities, timely feedback to students. Conduct synchronous meetings to address their doubts or tutorials, and provide a forum for learners to discuss the content with each other and with the instructor. Now let us see how to do this. So let us apply some recommendations to make the transition from face-to-face to online more meaningful. So here is the first recommendation. Keep your videos short and insert reflection spots. We have done this today in this session. So I'm going back to this word chunking. Okay. Chunking refers to identifying relevant breakpoints. So if this is the content that you wish to cover, don't do it at one stretch. Don't do it at one go. Have, segment that. Create some sections out of it. This is what we call as chunks. So create meaningful chunks out of it. That means logical, some maybe topic 1, topic 2, topic 3, topic 4, topic 5, and so that, right? So very first thing, remember, keep your videos short and do create meaningful chunks out of your videos, okay? Create conceptual chunking by identifying and grouping relevant concepts so that the lecture can be divided into meaningful chunks. Next question. What will you do in between these 2 chunks? I could see the gap here. So what is the gap for? Okay, the gap is for reflection spots. Today, the blue slides, reflection slides, I was asking you some questions. Okay, so that is what you mean by reflection question. What is reflection spot or reflection question? You are giving some moment, some time, some opportunity for your students to pause and reflect on what is getting covered in the classes. Okay, so ideally, here is a content. You have, separated out these 2 content, and in between you are introducing this reflection spot. So include reflection spot in the videos. Reflection spots should be connected to immediate preceding content. So pose a question here, and then whatever are the answers related to that or the point that you want to make, cover them immediately in the following content. So what is the importance of this? Students get an opportunity to express their ideas. Okay, right? So, and why it is very valuable? Because then it doesn't remain a monologue, but it's a dialogue. So this is something is possible even in virtual environment. So today I gave you an opportunity to give your feedback, your perspective, your answers using the same medium. Okay. So I could immediately get an feedback that are you understanding the same thing what I'm interpreting or what I'm referring to, right? So it was not a monologue, but it was a dialogue. I was posing certain questions, you were answering, right? And your answers were giving me immediate feedback that are we all moving in the same direction? Okay. So therefore, first recommendation, going back to first recommendations, keep your videos short and insert reflection spots. Now, again, just to make it clear, I'm not going to talk about how to create videos because that is something is going to follow, come in the following sessions. But my aim is to make you more aware about the pedagogical aspects of, clearing this material. Okay, so keep videos short and insert reflection spots, right? What is the next recommendation? It's in two parts, so I made it 2A. Give practice opportunity immediately and frequently. Okay, so give some activity because we want to exploit the potential what it has in learning by doing. Now perhaps you will be able to appreciate that why I started my session with those first 2-3 principles of learning, that why chunking helps. Okay, what is the power of learning by doing, right? So learning by doing is the simplest way of moving your your students who are otherwise passive listeners to active learners. So let us facilitate this by interspersing videos, by learning by doing activities, give some activity. Now remember, this activity need not be a very highly sophisticated activity. It could be a small quiz, small question, a small problem, okay? It could be very small activity, but it is important that you give that activity. It's not something very, very intense question that you are giving. Your objective is not to assess your students. Remember, by doing these activities, you are not grading your students, but you are giving your students an opportunity to assess their own learning, how well they are understanding. And it is an opportunity for you also to know immediately, are my students learning what I want my students to learn? Okay, so that's the importance of these kind of activities. And this could be graded, ungraded, it all depends on you. But the bottom line is, don't just make them listen to you continuously, give them something to do, however trivial, however small that activity could be. Okay, is this sounding overwhelming? Let us take a quick example and see how these recommendations can be applied. So now you will see this 4 or 5 yellow color slides where actually I am trying to demonstrate how this can be done. I picked up a course on signals and systems and the topic is overview of systems and system classification. I'm not going to touch the technical aspects. So even though you do not know this subject, even though you do not come from this stream of engineering, doesn't matter. You will be still able to understand the point what I'm trying to make over here. Okay, so let's see how to do this. So assume that I want to cover these concepts in my video. Concepts of system characterization, mathematical representation of systems, continuous time and discrete time, pictorial representation, systems classification, and blah blah. Point is, I have A, B, C, D, E, 5 concepts which are to be conveyed, which are to be covered in one video. So what I have done, I have created a chunk out of it, conceptual chunk, logical chunk. So this will be maybe first part of my video. This will be second part of my video. Bottom line again here is, I am not going to go on talking continuously, right from this point to this point. I am going to have some breaks in between. I am going to do chunking of my videos. So for example, those who understand this content or those who are able to relate to this topic, they will understand my first concept is system characterization and representation, and second is system classification. What after that? I will write down learning objectives. Why learning objectives should be written? Because it will give you yourself a clarity that what am I expecting out of this video. So if my students are going to watch this much part of the video, what is that they are going to learn? That is point number one. And sometimes, especially if people who are creating educational videos, see, writing this learning objective also helps students in identifying which video I should view or listen to, so that I'll be able to learn what I'm trying to. There are 10 videos, so if you categorize them or if you write down learning objectives, it becomes very easy for students also to understand, oh, I want to learn this, so let me pick up this video. Okay, so that's the advantage of writing learning objectives. Now see, so let us say I recorded a video to cover the first concept chunk. Now, how about a reflection question here? I'll explain what it means. For example, here I'm going to talk about how to represent systems mathematically. Okay. Now, can I ask a question here which provide, the question could be as simple as that. Ask students to list examples of some systems. Just a simple question, just ask them, write down names of some systems that come to your mind. So I'll tell you what is the power of this reflection question. Most of the time, students write down examples which are from engineering domain. For example, amplifier is a system, multiplexer is a system, receiver is a system, something like that. Okay. Now here, when you write summary or when you summarize this discussion, you can make a point here that even a banking sector, that is also a system. A bank account which gives you certain interest, that is also a system. So this kind of inputs, what you want to convey to your students, to think beyond or out of box, that is something can also be conveyed using this. Okay. So a good point here will be to ask a reflection question. Now, suppose you talked about system classification. You have explained them that this is how systems are classified, type A, type B, whatever it may be. Okay. Now, how about a small exercise here for students to identify which systems fall into category A, which systems fall into category B. So what is the advantage? What is the benefit of this? So this gives an immediate opportunity to apply what they have learned, in this video. So you were explaining them how to categorize systems into type A and type B. And if you ask the question immediately after that, you are giving some activity to your students. Immediately that gives an opportunity for students to understand how to apply whatever they have learned. Then and there they come to know, have I really understood this? Am I able to apply the concept that I'm learning in this subject, right? That is the advantage of this learning by doing activity. So this is how, where you could create a reflection spot question. This is how you could create a practice question. So that is what I mean by recommendations. Keep your videos short, create chunks, introduce reflection spot, give opportunity for students to, apply what they have been learning. So actually your video may look something like this. Instead of recording it completely a 30-minute long video, break into, now these numbers I have taken just as an example. It will depend on your topic. But the point is, don't just go on talking continuously. Have some activities in between. It could be in the form of reflection spot or it could be in the form of a practice question. Okay. So that is what we mean by recommendation 1 and 2. Let's move on. Give constructive feedback to improve students' learning. How to do this? So here is some activity, right? Now activity is incomplete if we are not able to give response or feedback to students. So this feedback we call as customized constructive feedback. Customized, that means it is customized for every individual student, and it is constructive because it is making students understand what they are learning or where they are going wrong and where they are getting it correct. Okay, so why we should do this? So it's a very old saying, practice makes man perfect. But I have a question mark for this, because what if you keep on practicing the wrong thing? Will that make you perfect? It will make you perfect in a wrong thing. So what is important? Somebody should tell you that you are doing it incorrectly. And therefore, I would slightly modify this. I would say practice with feedback makes one perfect. Okay. So therefore, a timely feedback is very, very important. Why do we want our students to wait till the exam comes to know that they have understood this wrongly? Why can't we tell them immediately? Don't you think that it will be helpful for students as well as for teachers also? Will we not be very happy to see that all my students are performing extremely well in my examinations? And this is possible if immediately we are able to give feedback to them. Okay, so let us see how to give this customized creative feedback. Now, let us look at this, how to customize the feedback. Now, you must be wondering, in my virtual environment, there are 60, 70, 100 students, and I'm not going to design 100 questions, different questions for different students. That is not meant by customized feedback. It's very simple way of doing this. Let us look here. For example, you have certain question. It could be MCQ question, for example, multiple choice or multiple select question. And let's say you have given three options, option 1, option 2, option 3. Out of which, let us say option 2 is correct. Okay. Now, when you are putting this into the system, maybe by using Moodle or any other learning management system, when a student particular selects option 1, instead of simply telling that students that your answer is incorrect, why not to tell the students that why this answer is incorrect? That is what we mean by customized feedback. Okay. So whatever option a particular student might have selected, either option 1, 2, or 3, the student will immediately come to know. I mean, somebody who has clicked this option, after clicking this, he will come to know, oh, my answer was right, but it was wrong because of XYZ reason, right? Same can happen here also. Somebody has selected option 3. The answer is incorrect. But instead of simply, coming to know that my answer is wrong, here the student will come to know my answer was wrong because maybe perhaps I followed a wrong method. So the reason with which students are arriving at option 3 or option 1, you can simply incorporate them into your feedback. And so that immediately students come to know where they went wrong. So next time when they are going to, make the next attempt, they will be more cautious about it. They will be more aware about it. Okay. And so that is what we mean by constructive feedback. So here, I would categorize this into 3 things. Not giving feedback is absolutely detrimental, bad for teaching learning process. It doesn't help. It doesn't even the purpose of asking question is also not getting fulfilled. So we must give some feedback. Moving one step ahead, just simply saying your answer is correct or incorrect, that is also not really helping in improving learning outcome. What will help in improving learning outcome is why my answer is correct or why my answer is incorrect. If we are able to tell this to students, that is really going to improve the learning outcome and the performance of your own class. So this is what is our next recommendation. So it's a time for feedback again. So is this talk making sense? I want to make you people active. Okay. Okay, so I could say a lot of yes. I'm really appreciating your level of commitment and patience. At 7:30 in the evening, you are very alert and you are with me. So thanks for that. Let's move on. Here is a recommendation 3, provide diverse resources and incentivize the access to resources. What do you mean by resources? The resources nowadays come in different formats. There could be websites, there could be activities, there could be videos, there could be web links. Okay. So you never know what interest a particular student may have. There is no harm in making available relevant resources available to them. In fact, that is the beauty of online learning, which otherwise it may not be possible for you in face-to-face classes. So as I told you, we have to, build upon the affordances that every medium gives us. So this is the beauty, or this is the benefits that online medium is giving us, and why not use this? Okay. So make maximum and relevant. Maximum doesn't mean, you refer, you ask students to refer to 100 different websites. That doesn't mean by, and that won't serve the purpose. That will have more distraction. Okay. So it could be, a small number, but something which is meaningful for students to learn. Nowadays, you know that the internet is full of all kinds of quality resources. So make these resources available to them. I'm sure what is the next question in your mind? You will say that, oh, I will recommend n number of resources to my students, but are they really going to have a look at this? They're not going to read this. So if you think that out of the resources that you have recommended, there are some 4 or 5 resources or 2 or 3 resources that they must see, here is a trick for what you should do. Okay. First of all, provide resources to increase the depth and breadth. And now let us answer this question. How will I ensure that students read this course? Incentivize students, close the loop with assimilation quiz. Just put a very small, low-stake quiz at the end of it. In XYZ resources, this point was explained in this manner. What is your interpretation, or how you should be doing it, or ask some questions related to that. And again, it need not be even graded or ungraded. That is completely your call. But basically, close this loop. Don't just ask them to read. Ask some kind of questions which will make value addition to them. Okay, so that is something is more important. Here is again I'm trying to explain. For example, the same topic, signal sense system, what we have been taking. Let us say I might have identified one typical video lecture by some faculty on NPTEL, maybe some IIT faculty. So I would just simply say that video lecture ABC from this time to this time explains the concept of non-causal system. What reason is given in the video for studying non-causal system in spite of they being physically unrealized? This is just an example. It could be as simple as this question. It could be MCQ, it could be short answer question. So students will realize that these resources are helping me to improve my learning. That is increasing my bandwidth. I get to know more practical aspect of the subject. So this is the way how you can exploit the tremendous potential that this online medium offers. See, many of you might have done certain courses on NPTEL or EDX or Coursera, and you must have observed it, that they share so many resources with you at the end of the section or at the end of the video. So those who are interested, at least those students will definitely go and have a look at it. Okay, because for every learner is a different learner, every learner has a different interest, right? So this is one way how you could try to increase the depth and breadth of your topic that you are trying to cover. Fourth recommendation is leverage peer learning. See, I'm sure we all are, the hardcore teachers are dying to see these kind of classes again. Students sitting in front of you, having some constructive discussion in the classrooms. But still there is a time for this perhaps. And therefore, what we can do about this into online medium. Okay, so leverage on, how do we leverage this peer learning, right? So way of doing this is make use of some learning management system or whatever technology or tool or medium that is available to you. Okay, and then give an opportunity for students to start certain discussion. Now again, you will have a question here, right? If students might start talking anything, they might start discussing anything which may not be even relevant to my subject or the topic that I'm teaching. How do I handle this kind of situation? So the answer here is this: anchor the discussion around the focus question. So instead of students, participating in the discussion forum randomly, just pose a focus question, open-ended question, and just ask students to, give their opinions on this. Sometimes we underestimate our young learners. They are very enthusiastic about this, okay? And many times they will go beyond your imaginations and your expectations, and they will really try to use this forum to teach each other. And we all know teaching is the best way of learning, right? Okay, so we don't want them to teach, but we at least want them to participate in the discussion that is happening. And this has an advantage that otherwise the students who are very shy in the physical classrooms, they don't mind making use of this platform and participating in this discussion forum. Okay, so again, have this discussion, and you may or may not ask a kind of a small reflection question. Let me show you an example with this. For example, you may simply pose a question: do you agree with the following statement? If yes, how will you justify it? Memoryless systems are always causal system, but the converse is not true. So it's a kind of open-ended question. See, please understand here, what is more important here, that students coming forward and start discussing something on their own. We have to inculcate this habit into them to be more participative, to get more involved into this peer learning process, and then they themselves will start helping their peers, and they will try to elevate each other. So this is something again which sometimes becomes difficult in physical classroom. This is the advantage of this online classrooms. So as I was saying, every medium comes with its own pros and cons. We have to bring on the strengths what every medium offers. So this is the way to go about this. Next recommendation is curate before you create. Now this is something to some extent might be applicable. So we understand that creating videos is not an easy task. It's a time-consuming process. Although once you invest your time and efforts into it, it will stay with you, which you will be able to reuse them in your next offering of the course. But still, it takes time. No one will deny this fact that it takes time, right? So therefore, if at all it is possible that the topic that you are going to teach, there is already some quality material is available, you don't mind losing a part of that. Nobody is asking you to entirely play the video which is recorded by some other faculty or some video from NPTEL. But it is possible that the course that you are teaching, if there is an NPTEL video available, NPTEL course available from that, you may pick up a particular lecture from that, and you may pick up a particular time stamping from this time to this time, and you may use that, and then you can ask questions related to that, or you can have your own discussion to summarize what was discussed in that. So that is also quite possible, and I think that is how we will grow as a community. Why everybody has to start from scratch? If there is some good work that has been already done, there is no harm in making use of that. That is the whole objective of what we call as OER, open educational resources. So wherever you find in your courses it is visible, please make use of them. For example, I'm not sure how many of you have known FATE, which is, it has a lot of very quality simulations which are available. There are a lot of repositories which make use of these simulations. Virtual labs, right? Now, as your principal sir has said, that this is a big problem all institutes are facing, how to conduct lab experiments. Teaching online is fine as far as theoretical content is concerned, but what about lab? Now just see where it is possible for you to make use of those virtual labs, right? So the point here is make use of the variety and vast volume of resources, quality resources which are available. See to what extent you can use them. I'm not saying that you will be able to use them 100% as it is. You will have to modify that, or you will be able to pick up only a small chunk out of it. But if even if you are able to find out something which is worth of 15 minutes, that might save your not just 15 minutes, but almost 1.5 hours of that video creation. Okay, so make this choice judiciously. See what is that you can use, discuss with your peers. If there are more number of faculty who are going to teach the same resource, right? So same course, you can share your resources. So this is how we all can grow as a community. So this principle is, or this recommendation is, curate before you create. If you could find something which can serve your purpose, which will be helpful for your students, you can go ahead and pick up that part of that typical resource. Okay. So on this slide, I am trying to put all the recommendations what we have discussed so far. So recommendation 1 was keep your video short and insert reflections first. Okay. Recommendation 2, give practice opportunity immediately and frequently, right? Recommendation 2B, give constructive feedback to improve students. Ask questions, give feedback, give constructive feedback. Let students know where they are going wrong or what is becoming incorrect. Okay. Provide diverse resources and incentivize the students to access the resources by asking small questions. See, that's the power of assessment. I mean, let us accept that ultimately we all are humans. If I would have said that at the end of this session there is going to be a quiz, I'm sure at least maybe 60-70% of the participant might have been more interactive, more reciprocative, right? So therefore, this helps. So whether at any age, so therefore, if it is wherever it is possible, if you can ask small low stake quiz, that will be a good one. But of course we have to find a balance, not that your students should get overwhelmed with too many questions. So I'm sure with so many years of teaching experience, you all are capable enough to making this decision, when to ask question, how to engage your students into your classes, right? And then it was leverage upon peer learning. Try to give importance to peer learning. Okay. So now coming to the end of this talk, online teaching is a new recipe. We require some practice, reflection, inputs from peers, feedback. We'll make expert in this, right? Start slow, go slow, but don't be too ambitious in the beginning itself. But definitely every small step that you're going to take is going to get counted and is going to take you towards your destination. More importantly, I again and again emphasize on this, that grow as a community. Talk to your colleagues, share your experiences, build upon each other's experiences. Okay. And also remember that students are also getting geared up to this different way of learning. The way you are, or rather we all are new to this online medium, even our students are also new. So even for us also, conducting faculty development program was always a face-to-face, and most of the time it was a face-to-face experience. But we also shifted to this new experience of online. And see, I'm happy because I'm able to reach so many number of people. So maybe I would say during this lockdown, almost 3,000 plus faculty had attended the various activities that I had conducted. This would have been impossible in face-to-face at any time. Okay, so everything comes with its pros and cons. So whatever points I discussed today about online learning, basically they derive, or they have been derived from the model that has been proposed by Educational Technology Program of IIT Bombay. We call it as learner-centric MOOCs, LCM model. Okay, so whatever I was discussing, I didn't explicitly emphasize on the phrases. For example, learning dialogue, learning by doing, LXD, LXI. But basically, the principles have been, recommendations have been derived from this model. So those who are interested should visit the site where there are constructors, there is help material available, how to make your classes more learner-centric. Okay, I'm sharing these resources here. The first resource is a resource that we created when lockdown started to help faculty across the country to move online. It's a kind of compendium of various online technology tools and pedagogical aspects put on one web page. So do visit to this, and I'm sure that will help you. The second URL is for learner-centric model, which I mentioned just now. As you know that I'm associated with Parimal and Pramod Chaudhary Center for Learning and Teaching. It's a learning and teaching center of IIT Bombay. So we do in-house training for IIT faculty as well as for outreach for other institutes. And visit this website and you'll be able to find out a lot of resources which have been made available there. And another important thing is whatever workshops, faculty development programs our center has conducted so far, we have recorded all those sessions and we have our own YouTube channel of it. So do visit to this YouTube channel and you'll be able to find out various programs, variety of programs which were video recorded and they have been made available on this YouTube channel. So I think that all these resources will be extremely useful to you. So as far as this session or talk is concerned, I would like to give credits to the faculty and research scholars of IDP in educational technology, the department I belong to, and of course to our faculty advisors, Professor Sahana Murthy and Professor Sridhar Iyer. The material that you have seen in this slide that has got evolved and iterated during various FDPs that we have conducted in last 10 years or so. So now here I'm introducing you to another very simple technology tool which is known as Padlet, and this strategy is known as minute paper. So the idea here is immediately after lecture you ask students what was helpful and what was muddy. When you say muddy, what was confusing, what you couldn't understand clearly. Okay, so what are the most valuable or helpful points that you come across in this session? What are the muddiest or confusing points that you come across in this session? Okay, so I want you to visit to this URL, tinyurl.com mp-minute-paper. This it's a password protected, so this is the password, fdp@sept 2020. Okay, and it will look something like this, and this tool is called as Padlet. Okay, this can be used as a collaborative digital board, right? So I would request all the participants to go to this URL and submit your answers. Okay, what have been helpful and what has been muddy points. See, ideally what happens, suppose if I ask these questions at the end of this session, and suppose if I have second session, I go through the muddy points and I answer the muddy points. I try to clear the muddy points in my next session. Okay, so that is something is the idea of taking this quick feedback, immediate feedback. So it is called as minute paper. It doesn't take more than a minute. So this is called as minute paper. Okay. That's all from my side. I take this opportunity to thank the organizers for giving this opportunity, making this platform available to get connected to so many faculty from different locations. It has been a real pleasure, and you all have been very participative and interactive throughout. Okay, and I really appreciate your commitment for this session, especially given the time was from 6 to 8 p.m. and I'll be very happy to answer any questions if you have. So here I could, that's all from my side. And once again, my thanks to the organizers and the participants. Now I will take up some questions as long as organizers permit. So here is a question, can you list some more interactive websites like menti.com? There is also Kahoot, there is also Poll Everywhere. So you can use anyone which you want, and all these are very easy. In fact, if you should also check with your LMS, that is Learning Management System. Sometimes they also offer these kind of polling. For example, even Zoom also offers this polling mechanism. So it will depend on what kind of online platform you are using. But otherwise, Mentimeter, Poll Everywhere, these are the immediate ones that I can suggest you. Are there any more questions? Or otherwise, I hand over the session to the organizers.
Hello.
Yeah.
Any questions from the participant? Participant, if you have any question, you can ask in the chat box.
So here is a question, ma'am, can we get PPT on the group? So later on, I will share the PPT with the organizers. They will make it available to you. And please, visit Padlet and give your feedback, because, these sessions, we don't look at it as an individual session, but it's a continuous ongoing process for us. So your feedbacks, especially the gray areas, something that was confusing, or the area where you would like more training. So these are the inputs for us to come up with more and more fruitful and meaningful sessions for the faculty. So over from my side and over to the organizers. Yeah, over to Swati ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Okay. So thank you, ma'am, for giving the tips and tricks for effective teaching learning process. The tricks you have explained about adding the chunks while making the video will really help the student to learn effectively and help the teachers to make the content more interactively. Addition of activity will definitely help the student to catch the attention of the student. The triangle of effective learning have really helped us to understand the three aspects of learning, that is learning objective, assessment, and instructional activity. Again, the recommendation of giving feedback to the students will definitely help to improve the learning outcomes. So thank you, ma'am. The session was really so interactive. You have made the session so interactive by asking the questions, activity-based questions to the participant. And definitely the resources which is shared by you will help all the participants to understand this new phase of learning. So thank you again. Thank you so much, ma'am.